Right, we're cutting across now to this photo op of the G7 leaders there right before the summit begins. This is coming in live from Munich. You see the Prime Minister there along with leaders, world leaders who are attending this meeting. Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, French President Emmanuel Macron there, among other world dignitaries. Boris Johnson as well at that particular photo op. It is down to business for the world leaders today. Climate and energy are going to be top focus as far as the G-Summit is concerned. Shinjoy Chaudhary with us for more on this. Shinjoy, that photo op ending, and there we see a hug between Prime Minister Modi and Emmanuel Macron, even as other world leaders are walking back right after that photo op.
Yes, it's particularly important to remember that when Macron again became president for the second time, the first world leader who went to Paris and meet President Macron was Prime Minister Modi. And they are very good friends. They're together as co-leaders of the International Solar Alliance. So they have a very good understanding. Importantly, as you rightly said, yes, environment and climate will be very important, and also energy, because this is a time when this issue of energy is becoming extremely important. There are people who are sniping that India is buying more and more petroleum from Russia. Well, India has made it very clear that it is in India's national interest to do so. And let's not forget that countries like Germany are also buying large quantities of fuel, as well as other countries from Russia. So at this point, India is making it very clear that as far as energy is concerned, India is doing what it is doing in its own national interest. Apart from that, gender equality issues will come up, climate certainly will come up, energy will come up. Issues like that, the economic reconstruction post-COVID, and also vaccine diplomacy are going to be major issues.
Absolutely. Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, US, the European Union and the United Kingdom, of course, are the primary members of the G7. But there are several invitees, including India, which is why Prime Minister Modi has a seat at the high table there. The diplomacy has begun. It is down to business now. And Shinjoy, as far as the Ukraine war and the Russian invasion and its after effects on the world is also something that will come up during the negotiations, during the talks there, as the world leaders sit down. Are we expecting further sanctions, perhaps a ban on imports as well? I believe we've lost that line with Shinjoy Chaudhary there, who's getting us the very latest. But there we see world leaders just about beginning to get down to business. The first order of business as far as the G7 summit is concerned is going to be on energy and climate. Ukraine and the Russian invasion is also something that is on the agenda. So is counter-terrorism. 6 countries and the European Union make up for the original G7, but several invitees are present at the high table there in Munich in Germany, including the Indian Prime Minister. World leaders there getting comfortable. The body language there speaks of the rapport that most of them share with each other, especially the Prime Minister, as we saw him hug French President Emmanuel Macron just before he headed into the room for this round table. Shinjoy is back with us, I believe. Shinjoy, Russian invasion of Ukraine is something that will be on the table as far as discussions are concerned between the G7 leaders. Are we looking at further sanctions or perhaps ban on imports or something like that to come out?
Yes, that could certainly be the case. You're absolutely right. The issue of Ukraine will inevitably come up. And there will be further measures taken by the G7 countries, led by the United States, Britain. They're all on board. But the point is that India is making it very clear that, look here, we want the war to end. We want a cessation of hostilities. We want dialogue. That's the only way this can be sorted out. And that point has been made very clear by the Indian government. So that issue India is particularly strong on, because now the world is beginning to understand where India is coming from. Apart from that, as I've mentioned, there are several reasons why this is particularly important for India. One, of course, relates to energy security, where India is making its point clear, as well as other issues like vaccination. India wants vaccines to go to every country in the world to fight COVID. And also, India is in favor of economic reconstruction post the COVID disaster.
Absolutely. Stay on with me. Times Network's consulting editor Maruf Raza also with us on the phone line. Now, Maruf, we do know that energy, climate all of that is going to be on top of the agenda as far as these G7 leaders are concerned. But countering China is also something that is on the agenda, perhaps not in terms of these meetings, but on the sidelines. Because just yesterday, G7 leaders detailed a $600 billion plan to rival China's Belt and Road Initiative.
You see, in my perspective, there are three important issues which India can reinforce by engaging effectively with G7. The first is that outside the Western world, the one strong counter to China is presented by India, both in terms of India's economic growing clout and India's strategic capabilities, including its military capabilities. And the Western world, particularly the G7, is conscious of that and wishes to build up on it. The second is that the Chinese strategic agenda of the Belt and Road Initiative can again be countered in Asia if the G7 puts its money where its mouth is and supports infrastructure growth in India to counter China's spread, particularly in India's neighborhood. And third and most important is the fact that India provides a number of other initiatives that the G7 also thinks on the same lines with. For example, as Srinjoy just rightly brought out, in areas of vaccination, in areas of climate change, and in areas of energy security growth initiatives, all of that is the best way that the G7 can win India over if it wants India to move away from its dependence on Russia, both militarily and the growing dependence on energy issues. Back to you.
Right, as far as Russia is concerned, the German Chancellor Scholz also just came out and said that, the pressure on Putin will continue to remain as far as the G7 summit is concerned. But it's been 5 months since the invasion of Ukraine. Several world leaders, several countries had come out and imposed sanctions on Putin. They barely deterred him. From this particular meeting, what are your expectations in terms of actions more than just words against Russia and its aggression?
See, the Europeans have been exposed as economically strong but strategically lightweight without the US support for them in the case of the Russian invasion. And the Europeans will now have to live under America's umbrella, which is what Washington wanted and Brussels did not. Having secured the Europeans as a counter group to Russia's agenda in East Europe, the world must now think up of other ways if it wants to stop the Russia-China nexus, which is now the big thing that is going to emerge after the invasion of Ukraine. And those are the areas I'm sure the G7 will deliberate seriously about, because just while they are meeting, Russian shelling has begun at Kyiv, the capital city, and this is obviously also messaging by Moscow.
Absolutely, and the timing of that, really, it all comes together as these world powers are there on the negotiations table, and Ukraine is going to definitely come up. So there is a sense of unease, perhaps, or aggression coming in from Moscow as well. Maruf Raza, thank you so much for that perspective. But shifting